Welcome to the preview of Collingwood versus Carlton here on the Jumper Punch channel. It's the second preview we're doing for the season. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a prediction in the video below. And joining us for the very first time with regards to a preview is Andreas from Black and White United. Good to have you on the channel, mate. Good to do it with you for the first time, mate. We're meeting virtually for the first time, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do a little quick fire preview of what's to come at the G on Thursday night, my man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be on. But yeah, should be good tomorrow night. Very excited. Usual derby between Collingwood and Carlton always brings out the best in everyone. So yeah,
and worst.
And that's what I meant.
And worst. What are your thoughts? Just general thoughts going into the game tomorrow night before we get stuck into the nitty gritty. I've seen a few Collingwood supporters, a few close mates, and on the socials suggesting that it might not just be a fait accompli given the poor start to the season our boys have had.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to be anything like what we did to Port Adelaide in round one. I think it's going to be more on the lines of a very similar game to what we had against the Western Bulldogs. I think it's going to be a very hard-fought, contested game, especially in the midfield. But yeah, to be honest with you, like, it doesn't really matter where either team is on the ladder. It's just one of those games where everyone rises for the occasion. So any Collingwood supporters going in there thinking that we're going to win by God knows how much, they've probably need to calm down a little bit because, you know, regardless of the result, it's going to be at least for most of the game, it's just going to be a slog for both sides, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Look at all the last handful of games have been. They've been decided literally by a kick, which is crazy to think about it, and they've probably gone more towards your way than our way. They've been epic games. I'm like, just from the neutral perspective, it's been. They've all been sensational to watch. From our perspective, we've left the stadium in slumped in the doldrums. Unfortunately, you've been up and about at the end of these games, but I think it's just a sign into where the teams have been at for the last 2 decades. You guys have been up there winning flags, consistently playing finals, and we've just been trying to find the soul of our football club, which I don't think we've rekindled for quite some time. We have been a meme for God knows how long, and it's probably going to continue that way given the state of affairs this season. But as you suggested, mate, these type of games, no matter where they are on the ladder, big crowd, vocal, it's going to be passionate in the grandstands as well. Then doesn't matter how both teams are going. It's always exciting going to the G, mate. The best 100%. Family, 100%. Mate. You know how it is. You were saying off air, you go with your old man, and you've been a Pies supporter all your life, so it's we love it.
Yeah, well, as you said before, with the close games, 4 of the past 6 have been done under a kick. You know,
crazy.
So it's just like, find another team that's done that, like another 2 teams that have done that just in recent years, let alone the entire history. So yeah.
It's insane. I wanted to ask as well. Now, Dan Houston was the headline in the off season. It was Carlton or Collingwood. He was umming and ahhing between the two, and then the Blues went a little bit cold, and you went all in on. How have you seen his start in Collingwood colours? Because he missed the first game, of course, due to suspension, but since then he's come in and he's looked solid enough. Has he added a completely different layer to the team, or is he just trying to level up what you've already done before? Because you guys have always been really good at moving that ball off halfback since McRae has come in there. But how have you seen his transition to Collingwood colours?
Well, it's funny you say that we've been good moving the ball off the halfback line and stuff, but like, I think it's probably one of our weaker areas. We've got some good players, obviously, within that halfback line, but I still think that we're one like really good defender away from completely breaking the competition open. And it's just, unfortunately, we're still trying to find that with Nathan Murphy obviously not playing in our defence. But in regards to Houston's input, that game against like his old side Port Adelaide, like in my mind, I was thinking to myself, you'd probably want to give him a bit of leniency considering it's his first game, MCG, it's a Collingwood home game, and it just happens to be against his old side. He racks up 30-something disposals pretty much, and he's one of the man of the match. And he's got the, obviously, like, he does the impactful things, the things that you notice, the running off the half-back line, but it was the little things inside a play where he was in and under, and he was getting the hands out, and he was doing those little things, and it's just like, geez, we've got a guy who's doing this on the back line now, and he's bringing it forward, and it's freeing up the likes of Josh Dacos and Isaac
Yeah.
Quainer a bit. So it's exactly what we needed. So hopefully we can see that, come into fruition even more over the season and really complement a backline that still needs a little bit of tweaking.
What about on our end? And I always ask, and I did this in our Bulldogs preview before we played them last Friday night. I always like asking opposition fans what they think the dangers of our teams are. And it goes without saying, Charlie Curnow, obviously he's a guy you're going to have to stop. Patrick Cripps. Are there any other players you look at outside of those two that could be a danger for your Magpies?
Like for me, it's Kemp, especially after what he did against the Dogs. I mean, that's something that we're going to have to watch, because if all our focus goes, obviously with Harry not playing, I don't think he got named today. So with Harry not playing, the focus is going to go on to Charlie. But then you don't want players like Kemp, doing what he did against the Dogs, because we're focusing so much on where most likely you're going to be kicking it to, judging by especially your last game. That's what that was the main target. The other one too, I just want to quickly bring up is the inclusion of Ashton Moyer in your side. This one here, finally he got named for you guys. So I mean, I know he's only played 2 games last season or whatever, but he looked pretty good in the VFL, and I just think that because of his size, he's that medium forward, but he can play as a small. He can play as an extra tall as well. And right now, Carlton is screaming for a key small forward. So I think that's another one too. I mean, you're playing your first game for the season against the Pies. It could be one of those games where everything just falls his way. So there's a lot there that we have to unpack. But I think the main thing is going to be that obviously the delivery to Charlie Curnow is going to be the big thing for us this week.
Yeah. He's that battle. You would suspect do you think Frampton will go to him, or will Moore go to him? What's the move you'd make?
To be honest, I'll probably start Frampton and just wear him like a glove.
Right.
And just because if Charlie tends to play a little bit higher sometimes, and whereas Harry would play more in the goal square. So that's not going to happen. So if Curnow was to push up a little bit more, and then Frampton was to play on him quite tight, then I've got no issue with Charlie Curnow taking marks, 55, 60 meters out. I don't want him taking marks in the goal square. So if we can draw him out, then obviously, we should have you guys covered down on the back end of the back line there. But who knows?
No, it's you say all that in theory, and then who actually knows what happens when the ball gets bounced. So I don't think people have realised this, and I've been raising this the last couple of weeks in light of this game, that looking at the head-to-head ledger between these two teams, Collingwood's actually gone ahead the last couple of years. So I think that the ledger now reads Collingwood 133 wins, Carlton 129, and there's been 4 draws in this. So look, I think Carlton fans, and I can say this too, is that I don't know if it's just ignorance is bliss. It's a blissful ignorance, or it's just an arrogance that's still part of the club that I don't think people realise that. And people will maybe reference the grand final records between the two teams, but whatever that means. I mean, they were years ago. They were God knows how long ago. Yeah. Collingwood's actually become a better team than Carlton now. You can't argue that. The VFL AFL history says they're ahead on the win-loss ledger, and they've got equal amount of premiership. So if you just go by what's happened on field, Collingwood's actually gone ahead. More final series, equal flags, and more wins.
Yeah, on paper it says that, and on the record books it says that. But my childhood says different. In my childhood says. My childhood in the early 90s says trauma.
Generational trauma.
I saw Collingwood win. I saw Collingwood win a game in '94, and the next game I saw us win live at the G was, I think it was in 2000. So I've gone 6 years without a win against Carlton when I was a kid. So that's a little bit different.
It's funny how each narrative changes according to how old the person is and what generation they grew up with. Because I know Rocco, he went off last week about, why are people making me feel guilty for celebrating premierships back in the 70s and 80s and against Collingwood? I know all my life that we've been better than Collingwood. And it's just funny how each generation has a different narrative based on what they've seen in their football team. So I suppose it depends what lens you view it with.
And it's what's passed down from
correct
from like your parents and your rellos and the uncle that goes to the Christmas party that you only see once a year. All that type of stuff.
So is your whole family Collingwood, or is it a mixture of everything? Like how did you end up following the club?
so my direct family, so like my mum, dad,
Yeah.
me and my sister are all mad Collingwood supporters.
Okay, right. Okay.
So that I got that from my dad. Like, you only support, the club of either
Yeah.
where you're living or the club that your dad follows. But my extended family are all a mix between Collingwood and Carlton. So it does run a bit deep.
Okay.
My cousin Vince is, he's one of my best mates. He's like a brother to me, but he's a mad Carlton supporter.
Yeah, of course. His name's Vincent. He's a Carlton supporter. He couldn't be anything else, could he?
No. Big Vincenz.
Yeah. See, there you go. I love that. I think, and there's this thing, not to get too holistic with the discussion, but that whole the European ethnicity inside the fan bases of Collingwood and Carlton and Essendon and Richmond. I don't think, and I was looking through like just discussion on social media, I don't think Aussie culture's quite got a grasp of that passion.
No.
You know what I mean? There's not like when I went to Europe and when I went to London, that football culture, it's life or death. It's quite literally life or death. It's like a religion for people over there. And I don't think, when I tell people that, like, say for argument's sake, it might not be the height of like an Arsenal versus Tottenham or a Manchester United versus Liverpool or a Celtic versus Rangers, but it is that type of rivalry. If you go tell someone that, Collingwood Carlton fans, it's the biggest rivalry in Aussie rules, but the fans sit together in the grandstands, they think you've got your head screwed on differently over there.
It's probably the one game though where I think they probably shouldn't be sitting together.
I agree. It should be segregated, mate. It should. I reckon it should be like half and half or 3/4 and a
exactly.
quarter.
Like in the AFL members, you sit in the AFL members. You sit within other AFL members, regardless of the clubs that you support. And I could be sitting there with my mates or my old man, and then like directly in front or behind, I've got the equivalent of me, but as a Carlton supporter.
Yeah. I'm sure
you've just got to oh my god.
I'm sure you've had verbals.
Yeah. Recent times I've had the upper hand, but as a childhood, trauma.
But I love it. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. As long as we're not beating each other up, mate, we're all okay.
It's not Green Street hooligans, so it's
no, nothing like that. No shivs or anything like that. We're not going down that path. No bricks to heads or anything like that. I wanted to play a little exercise with you for the on-field and the teams that have been named. So for Collingwood, their ins and outs. So my check and Frampton have both come back in. And McInnes, unfortunately, he's out with that season-ending ACL injury. And Cox comes out. And for Carlton, it's Moyer, Lord, White, and out go Cottrell, Evans, and Boyd. I wanted to start from the back line and just do a comparison of individuals in each position. So we'll start with full back. And I'll ask you, Andreas, Frampton or Wiedering? Who would you, if you had to pick?
Wiedering.
Yeah,
Wiedering every day of the week. Every day of the week.
That's a pretty obvious one, I'd have thought.
Yeah.
Next one, the back pocket. I find this one interesting. Maynard or Sard?
Based on his performance so far this season, I'll go Maynard.
Yeah. I think just on form, you could even say in history too. I'd be going Maynard, to be honest. Yeah, I'd be going Maynard. I don't know if they're going to play these particular roles. So I'll go like Howe and Hollands have been named across the back pocket, but I might go with a better intercept and say I'll compare Howe with McGovern. I'm going Howe.
Howe.
Yeah,
probably because of his aerial.
By a long way.
Yeah, I think Howe more because he's probably a bit more of an intercept marker as well.
Yeah. That's the path I'm going to go down there. Now the other positions, I'll say, let's go with the halfback flankers now, and we'll go. I mean, Hollands and Houston. That's a
Houston.
That's pretty obvious. I'd have thought. Cowan and Quaynor. I'm Quaynor.
Quaynor, but his form needs to get a bit better so far.
Okay,
like he
needs to. So Quaynor's been a bit down, has he?
Not as much as last year, but I still think we can expect a little bit more out of him in the next few weeks. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And then the other one is Moore and Young. Well,
I think I'll go Darcy Moore because he's the captain. I can't say no to that one. So
yeah. We'll go to the centre lines. We'll start with the wings. So we'll go with both wingers. So the wingers that line up for your mob, Lipinski and Sidebottom, and the wingers that line up for our mob are actually Akers and Walsh. So both of those have been named on the wing. Are you going to go one of each, or are you going to pick both Pies players?
I'll go Sidebottom over Akers.
Yep.
And Walsh and Lipinski is a pretty tight one. because Lipinski's start of the season has actually been really well.
And he's a winger. He's a pure winger, isn't he?
Yeah. So I don't want to sound too biased here, but I'd probably go Lipinski only because
mate. I think you can make a case for both.
I'd probably go Lipinski because you're Welsh and his hammies, like you just don't know what you're going to get every week. So yeah.
Look, Akers has had a shocking start to the season, but just because he's got enough credits in the bank, if I was going pure wingers, I'd go side bottom Akers, just because Akers he's stepped up in those big. There've been big moments that he's had, and he's been part of that for the last couple of seasons. But his form has been shocking.
That Melbourne semi-final a couple of years ago was elite.
Huge. He was enormous. He was enormous. Mate, we'll start with the forward with the mids as well. We will go with the rucks, Cameron or TDK.
TDK in a very close one.
Yeah, I think Tom De Koning for me.
Comfortably.
Although I do actually rate Darcy Cameron. I think he's a very good ruck. Yeah. I do really rate him. And then the on-ballers, Crisp and Dacos. And our on-ballers are Chera and Hewitt. And you can also throw in Cripps. And your sentiment on the actual field is
Perryman.
Your sentiment is Perryman. Okay, so let's go through those three then. Let's go through Perryman, Hewitt, because they play sort of similar roles, I'd have thought.
Yeah, so I'll go probably Hewitt on that one there.
Yeah, I'll go Hewitt as well, although I do think Perryman has scope for improvement this year. I think Hewitt's season's been really strong.
If it was mid-season this was happening, I'd probably say something different. But at the moment, I'll say Hewitt. I thought he was actually pretty decent so far. He started it okay this season.
We'll go Crisp v. Chera. We'll go with that.
Crisp. Yeah.
Okay. I'll probably you know what? I'll go Crisp as well. I just think he's done it more often than not. And Chera's, I don't know, he just hasn't quite hit the heights, albeit back in 2023, but that's 2 years ago. Akos and Cripps.
you got? Can we be on here for 2 hours debating this one?
No, this will go on forever. Of course, I'm going to choose our captain just because
I'm going to, and I'll choose Dacos for that one there. But I was hoping you would have said Chris.
They're two different players. They're two different players, you know.
They are. But if I had to pick one out of those two, I'd obviously pick Dacos. But if you had to put Cripps in a line with somebody else, then obviously I'd choose Paddy Cripps. So, you saved the good one there.
Yeah. Well, I think we've picked a good mixture. I think you can make a case for. I think you can make a case for all of them. Forward line, I find really interesting, mate. I've honestly, out of all the forward players there, I'm picking every single player as a Collingwood player except for Charlie Curnow.
I would be exactly the same.
That's it. There's no one else. I'm not even going to waste time.
Like the only one that I would swap for Charlie Curnow is probably my check because he was out last week. Only because he was out last week, you know. Yeah. But that's that's the only one that I'd swap.
Out of all of them, I think out of all of that, Charlie is the best player if you had to pick all of them. That's what I think. But based on the forward line, I can't pick anybody else.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Player point of view, every other Collingwood player is just a better forward.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, and Charlie's probably the most influential.
That's it.
But I do think De Goey, if he plays in the forward line, he could be the most damaging on game day.
Good call.
Yeah.
See, I'm not like Doherty, Kemp, Fogarty, Silvania, Motlop. I ain't picking them ahead of Hill, Mychek, De Goey, Elliott, or Schultz.
I wouldn't either.
I don't think you can make the argument. I'm being as unbiased as I can be.
So am I. I'm trying my hardest.
Mate, no. But it's a better team at the moment. It's a better club at the moment. It's not about Carlton Collingwood. It's just the evidence in front of you. How about the bench? Let's go to the bench. So Dacos, Pendlebury, Membry, McCreery, and Long. We'll go with, our bench is a little different. We've got Moyer, Lord, Haynes, Williams, and White, but we've got Moyer, who's only playing his third game. Lord is still in his infancy. Haynes is an experienced head. Williams, what you see is what you get. And Will White's making his debut. And then we compare it to yours, and you've got Josh Dacos, gun, Pendlebury, champion. Membry has been okay. McCreery is a high-impact player, and Ned Long, he'll probably
he's had a good start to the season, and
He
he got a
has.
contract
He has.
extension as well. So, look, if I had to choose out, it'd be all Collingwood. The only one that I'd potentially consider swapping out just for the sake of the exercise would be probably Lord for Long, if I had to.
Right. Okay, mate. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's the squad. If we had to do like a 23 combined out of players here, it's 3/4 of the team in my mind is Collingwood.
Based on current form, though.
Yeah,
Based
and
on
even history,
yeah.
mate. Even history, man. Even
Yeah.
what these players have done in their career, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
No, that was a good exercise, but
it paints a bleak picture if you're going to predict Carlton tomorrow, I'd have thought.
Yeah, but I was just going to say it still doesn't change the fact that
of course,
these guys can lift on the day, you know.
Correct.
So
correct.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think's going to happen? Let's get into it. Predictions. What's going to happen tomorrow night, and what do you think's or tonight, Thursday night, and what's going to happen for the rest of the year for your mob and my mob? I like to get some long range forecasting as well into this.
Yeah, no worries. So look, if you want to go on down the path of the ways that Collingwood could win this game and the way that we can stop Carlton from being like so impactful on the scoreboard is simply we need to stop, obviously, as I said before, the delivery into Charlie Curnow.
Yep.
So, and I think the one thing that we're doing a lot more this year is when we've got the football, as opposed to last year, we're valuing our time with the ball a lot more, and we're doing a lot more smarter things. And I think the one thing that we'll be able to do tomorrow night when we've got possession of the footy is switch it and use the width of the ground. I don't see Carlton doing that too much. And when you guys do apply that part of your game, it's always going to Sard, and he's always getting the ball in the half back or in the middle, and he's just bombing it long. And it's going for the tall forwards. Now, against lower teams, against lower opposition, I'm excluding the Richmond side of things out of it. I won't talk about that, but it would work most of the time. Yeah. But I think if we're able to man up properly and stop that from you guys, and we're able to implement that ourselves, and just use the width of the ground, because you guys, and you've said it on your show before, and I've said it on my videos too, you guys do play that high contested intensity, crash and bash football. Correct. Whereas we're a bit more along the lines of the Hawthorn, quick handballs out of the defence, bang, get Polished. It out long, use the width and stuff like that. If we don't come in with that focus and play the game on our terms, and you drag us down to that, I'm not going to say drag us down to that level, but drag us into your style of play, which is more crash and bash, then that's when it's going to be a lot tighter. And I think you guys will do that at the start. I think the first quarter and a half, you'll probably be a couple of goals up. You'll try and get us to play that game. And then as the game goes on, we should be able to apply our trade a bit more better. But these games, it could be us doing it at the start, and then you guys come from late. We don't know. But I think that if we're able to use the width of the ground and catch you guys out, we should be able to just get those deliveries into the forward 50. But at the same time, I mean, if you guys can get those cheeky little hand passes out and be pretty quick, and you don't kick it so high to Curnow, and it's more of a it's more of a quick direct pass into the forward line, and he's steaming out from the goal square or from 45 out, that's going to be very dangerous for us. So we have to stop that delivery into the forward line.
Yeah, I think, and our kryptonite too is if you cut off our short options, that's when we start to go long and high up the line, and then that will probably favour your intercepts like Moore and Howe and whatnot. So I think
in theory,
on our end, on our end, we have to be low and penetrating with our ball movement inside forward 50, similar to the way Hawthorn beat us. They didn't have huge tall options up forward, but what they would do is, rather than going 50 meters long, they'd sort of drop the ball a little shorter, 3/4 kicks, but with a bit more penetration on them and a bit more zip on them to take out Wiedering, to take out our intercept mark. So I think that's the way you beat Carlton. And then I think conversely on our end, we kind of need to stop and stifle the ball from getting to the outside, because once your runners get on the end of it, Josh Dacos, Houston, Bobby Hill as well, that spells danger, I think, too. So look, I think it'll be more a case of Carlton will try to impose their will at the contest, but I think on the outside they'll try to stifle rather than trying to beat your mob with outside game, if that makes sense, because I think that'll just be fraught with danger.
Yeah, no, 100%. But as I said, we've got players also that can, match up really well against you if we get locked into that contested play.
Yes.
So, and
Who are
I
some of
think
those blokes? Like Perriman's a big body now.
you'd be talking players like Lockie Schultz, just with his like tackling pressure and just like his desire to get the ball and to make an impact, especially if the ball's locked in our forward line and you guys are trying to bring it out. I think this game is made for Beau McCreary. I think this is a game where he will match up really well against you guys. If you guys are doing that, that really crash and bash style of play, he is that player for us. He can tackle. He's extremely quick with the ball. So I think he's going to be a bit of a danger for you guys if he gets up and running. I think he's only averaging, off the top of my head, I haven't looked at the stats, but I think he's only averaging 12 disposals a game. If he can get those 12 disposals to, 15, 18, and then, maybe 2 goals a game, I mean, you're talking that's really, up there. And I don't
he's
think
high
he's far
impact
off.
too, isn't he? Like really high impact.
Yeah. And then and then a player like Ned Long, for example, if he comes on as a sub later on in the game and it's neck and neck, or it's still a little bit more in the balance as what we would like, he's the type of player that can really then impose that sort of crash bash impact to allow the other players like a Josh Dacos, Nick Dacos, Dan Houston, and Jordan De Goey to run free. So he's got a bit more of that in and under style of play that we're missing with Tom Mitchell at the moment. So there's a few of them, but I think this game, Beau McCreary, I reckon this is the game that we see him come out and make a big impact, which we need.
Righto, there you go. He's potentially the ace up the sleeve for the Magpies tomorrow. All right, Andreas, final prediction. What's going to happen? Obviously, you're going to tip the Pies. What's the margin?
Yeah. If everything, and never happens, but if we play the entire game on our level, or we're in control of most of the game, 85% of the game, because you guys will have your patches and stuff like that.
Of course,
should win.
Yeah.
I think it's between like 22, 25 points. I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can still see it where, Carlton come out and play like Hawthorn of the mid 2010s. You know what I mean? Like it's just one of those things. So, but on paper and based on form, I do think the Pies will probably get up by, I'll just say 22 points. I think that's probably a fair, 3-4 goals. I think that's probably a fair estimation.
My head says Collingwood, obviously. My heart will always say Carlton. And I actually flipped the coin before and it landed on Carlton. So I flipped the coin, landed on Carlton. I'll say us by 4 points just for the sake of formalities and the sake of entertainment and for this to be chopped up and
what you can do though is what you can do is you can say Carlton on this and then on your tips on the ESPN app, just tip Collingwood. So either way, you've got it. There you go.
already hedged the bets.
Nice. Nice work.
Already hedged. What about for the rest of the season before we wrap up, my man? What's going to happen? I actually tip your boys for the flag. You're going to laugh at work at SEN. I said I think your boys will win it.
You'd like to think so, but just
I wouldn't like to think so. But from a money perspective, yes, I hope that's going to happen, mate. I'm thinking with my pocket.
I think realistically, we're probably in that position from about 4th to 8th. Around there. I think that's where we'll finish the season. I'd like it to be higher. So, potentially if we were to finish top 4, we'd get the home final. Because I think there's too many interstate teams this year that may finish higher. And if
makes
you do
it tricky,
finish,
doesn't it?
You're not going to get that home sort of qualifying final. So unless it's like you finish 4th and Geelong finish on top, and they're not playing like that at the moment. So
correct.
I think we're sitting anywhere between 4th and 8th based on current form. But I'd like to think that, games like this against Carlton and against the lower sides, the last couple of years we've struggled against the lower sides, and then we do the miraculous comeback and, you got to get the defibrillators out and stuff like that.
It's not really sustainable, is it? But
it's
great
not.
to watch.
It's good to watch, and to be honest, we won a flag doing it, which was great. But it's over the longevity of a period that a side can play together, which is like your average, like the core players will play together between 5 and 8 years or whatever it is. You can't do that every year. So
correct.
Hopefully we can put more teams away this season, like we did against Port, and that wasn't just a one-off. But the same question goes to you. Like once you guys get that win, whether it's this week, next week against West Coast, where do you see you guys?
Yeah. I think on my end, I think it's still finals, right? But I do think if we win tomorrow night, which look, it's a possibility, right? It's not beyond the realms of possibility. Yeah, I think if we do win, I think we will go on a run because it's just a pressure release. Like whether that's mentally or physically, like you put your shoulders down and you're like, all right, we're on the board. West Coast and North Melbourne. Let's, in blocks. A good friend of ours on the program, Ange Christou, of course, he was an old Collingwood supporter when he was a younger buck, but he's
So is
one of our
Kuda.
legends. So is Kuda. He always said you've got to approach the season in blocks. We've had this. We're about to come up to the first block. If we go 1-3, you kind of just reset. Look, and the same can be said if we go 0-4. But again, 0-4 is very, very difficult to come back from, especially with a group that's never shown that they can come back from that type of adversity because they've never been through it under Michael Voss. They've never started 0-3. They've never started 0-4. How they deal with it, I don't know. But look, I still
it's
think
not impossible, though.
No,
it's not impossible.
It's not. No. Even if we do go 0-4, I think they can still make finals, but it's a very, very, very faint possibility. So, I mean, you just have to look back at history and maths. It just says that you go 0-4, it's almost impossible.
You're relying more on other teams.
Makes it easier.
You're relying more on other teams than towards the back end of the season. Exactly like what we did last season. We went 0-3. We started building form, and then we had that really hard patch towards the end. We lost 4 in a row, and ultimately cost us a spot in the finals. And if we had made it, it changes the whole complex of the 8. You know what I mean? So it's just ifs, buts. The narrative flips.
You know what I'd love? I'd love a Carlton Collingwood final. That'd be nice. We haven't had one since 1988.
Oh, you were half a game away from it happening in a grand final a couple of years ago.
I know. Oh God, geez, that would have been something. God, you probably still would have been celebrating it either way it went. Where can we find all your handiwork, mate?
You can find me on
give your
YouTube.
Socials and everything a plug, mate. Give it a bit of love.
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube, Black and White United, and the same on Instagram, just Black White United on Instagram. But yeah, jump on the Carlton channels, the Collingwood channels and stuff, and all the time. But love your work at the Jumper Punch. It's good. The Forever Rivals show is my favourite. I jump on that a few times with Rocco and Manny and Mark and the boys. Yeah, it's good.
They have a crack at each other, then they kiss and make up after all of it. So
pretty much, I think they're still going now. But anyway.
Yeah, they are actually. We're recording this on a Wednesday night. It'll be up Thursday morning for everybody to watch. But Black and White United, you can click the link below. We'll have it on the title, and we'll have the links in our description as well. Like, subscribe, comment. Make sure you follow Andreas's page on the socials as well. So
thank you.
Pleasure to do it with you for the first time, my man. May the best team win tomorrow. We'll probably be at each other's. We'll all be at each other's throats come 3/4 time at the G tomorrow. It's all amicable and happy faces at the moment. But I'll tell you now, once it's in the cut and thrust and the game starts tomorrow, there's going to be war, I think, tomorrow. So
all fairs in love and war, I think.
Yeah, exactly right. Appreciate it, mate. We'll reconvene later in the year, my man.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. Cheers.